What if things don't work out, if it's not happily ever after? Today we talk about the D word on Smart Money. Welcome to Smart Money. I'm Pat Boyle along with Julia Anderson, and today we have not our most cheerful topic, but I think we have some information to share about divorce because the numbers are up there around here, aren't they, Julia?
Yes, the numbers say that in Oregon, 10,000 people get divorced a year, and that's quite a few, and in Washington it's 20,000. So despite COVID and everything else, people are still getting divorced. And this issue came up for me, and I've talked about it before on Smart Money, but I was recently on a show that a divorce attorney friend of mine hosts on Facebook, and you can link on that, by the way, at my website, 60andsingle.com.
All right.
And we were talking about the very start of a divorce, like either you're preparing to be into a divorce or you're just getting started with a divorce. And there's a lot to think about. And bottom line is divorces are terrible. They are stressful. They are sad. You may feel anger. You may be losing sleep. There's a lot of things that are going on as you get into this whole situation. And so we talked about specific tips on how to get through it.
I would think the pandemic might have increased the level or the amount of divorces, because if you're 24/7 with your significant other and it's not seeming very significant, I think marriages have broken during the pandemic. So we have some helpful information. I did want to know, and I looked it up, I was wondering, well, what demographic is getting divorced the most? And according to the Census Bureau, 34% of women and 33% of men 20 or older have divorced. And the number is higher if you're an adult age 56 to 64. It's 43% for both genders. So that kind of surprised me.
Two reasons for that. One is you've gotten through raising your kids. You've gotten your career where you want it to be. Maybe both of you are financially okay, and there's just absolutely no reason for you to stay together. So some people do it for that reason. And then some people, they suddenly realize they're getting old and they want a big change. And so that's why, at least what research I've read, is why older couples may be divorcing at a greater rate than the younger ones are. When I was on the show with Juliet, I think the biggest advice that she had, and I certainly agree with it, is that you may want to get through this thing as fast as possible. You don't want the pain, you don't want the anger, you want things to settle down. And certainly at the beginning of a divorce, you may feel like the deck of cards has been thrown in the air and they haven't landed yet. And so there's a lot of anxiety around that, and you just want to get it over with. But the bottom line advice is take a deep breath, be patient, especially for women, because this is going to affect the rest of your life. And it certainly, especially for women, is going to affect their financial future.
I think the fight or flight reaction would want to kick in, because how many of us want to stay in the uncomfortable and the painful? I mean, it's natural instinct to just like, get me out of here. But
right.
it's
I'm packing my bag and I'm leaving.
But it's worth sticking around, taking a deep breath, and figuring things out.
Right.
And women, as you said, are more affected negatively by divorce. There are kids to raise, depending on the age. What if you're a stay-at-home mom and you haven't been working, and now maybe you have to go back into the workforce? So there are a lot of challenges for women, more so than men, aren't there?
There are. And so the first thing to do is you've got to have a good attorney who's probably advising you to do the same thing. Slow it down. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's make sure that you have the financial outcome that you want out of this, the best one that you can get. And one of the first steps that Juliet and I talked about was that you need to look at your household budget now and after the divorce is final. What is that household budget going to look like? And will you have the income to cover the household expenses that you are going to have? And so that's a really important step to be taking.
I was wondering, as I was prepping for the segment, is there a recommendation to have couples go through mediation and not have the expense of an attorney? I know it didn't work for the Gates. I don't know that they did that. But can you try to work things out amicably between the two of you?
It really depends on how you both feel about it. If you've known that the the divorce has been coming for a while, and you think a mediator would be able to facilitate that, where you just want to split up the assets, so that you get a pretty much 50-50 share in terms of the settlement, and you're willing to sit across the table from each other and talk about that with a mediator, I think that's a perfectly fine, less expensive way to go. But often it's not that way. And especially for women, they need to have somebody in their court who's going to advocate for them financially. Do you go after half the pension money down the road someday? Do you go for half the 401k that somebody has so that you're balancing things out there? And how would all that be sorted out? And sometimes it takes an attorney to do that, and it may be worth the money.
So I imagine sometimes, too, women might not know what they should ask for. And so if you have an attorney who can say, yep, go for 50% of this, and this, spousal support, child support, that'll help guide your path, and you won't worry about not being nice. Because
Right.
I think women tend to want to be nice a lot and not rock the boat.
Right, and it also goes along with it's just wanting to get this over with, so you may not be thinking clearly, frankly, about the long-term outcome of all this and what it might mean to you financially. And so there's someone else who's being the grown-up, as you said.
What if you look at your budget, as you suggest, and looking at your financial future, and you can't make ends meet?
It can be tough, especially because a certain percentage of women are not going to get that child support that has been promised in the divorce. And that is a tough one because you may have children under 18, and you may have if you stay in the house that you and your ex-spouse have shared together and you're no longer having his income or hers help pay that mortgage payment, how is that going to work? So you might need some outside financial counseling separate from your divorce attorney on what can you do to make this all work for yourself and not go crazy. The obvious things are, if you haven't been working full-time, you've got to start looking at a full-time job. You need maybe some coaching with a resume so that you can get a better paying job as you get through this divorce that will bring in more income. And you may be needing to network with your friends if you have work connections on what the opportunities are for you financially with a job. So those are all really important things to be thinking about as you make your way through a divorce, which may take a year. I mean, this can take a while.
Are you in a better position if the husband is the one who is seeking the divorce? Is that better leverage for you as you work through the attorneys?
It absolutely is. If he's wanting to move on, may have a new relationship, he may be the one that wants to get it done quickly. And that may be a mistake on his part because he may make promises that are financially to your benefit. But that's fine. If you need to leverage that the best way you can, if you're in a situation where financially you're going to take a big hit, women just do not come out the winners usually in a divorce. And looking long term, half the people over 65, women over 65, are on their own. And they may not have a lot of income in their retirement. So a divorce in your 40s, 50s, certainly your 60s, is a big factor in how things are going to go for you financially.
Should you try to keep the house?
I think
Is
so.
that kind of standard?
Especially if you have children. The less you upset them in terms of disturbing their life. If they've got a routine where they're in the house that you've been sharing and they're going to the same school and the same daycare and all of those things, I think are really important for children. And a house is an asset. It can be a really important asset in terms of your long-term financial future.
Do you think there are any support groups out there for women going through divorce to lift them up?
Yeah, and there's one that I like. It's called wife.org. WIFE.org, and it basically was established 20 years ago by a couple of women who have all kinds of tips on how to manage a divorce, and they have local workshops that you can sign into.
Do you have any stats or any sort of gut sense about how is there a tendency for some women or for whoever's been divorced to rush into a second marriage, to kind of go back to that safety partner thing?
What does that got to do with anything, Pat?
No, I mean, I have observed some people who have quickly gotten remarried and wanted the safety
Well,
of a partnership.
I think, one of the phrases of one of my women friends who was over 60, when she told me this, she said, men are looking for a new partner if they've become single for whatever reason, and it's either a purse or a nurse is what they're looking for, which is kind of a cheap shot for men. But there's comfort in wanting to be with someone else. So rushing into it and making a bigger mistake than the one you're leaving behind, yeah, you can certainly do that. I guess for me, it would be a matter of getting into some counseling, and I'm talking about psychological counseling, where you talk about, why is this happening? How can you come out of this a better person? Do you need to learn to live on your own before you start dating again? If there's children involved, what does that mean to them? I know a lot of women who said, I'm here to raise my kids and get them out of high school before I start dating anybody, and I can do this financially on my own. So there's a lot of things to think about and weigh before you want to get back into the dating scene. Kind of depends on your age, your status in terms of children, and a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, I asked that question because there was someone I knew who went through a divorce and then got remarried a year later, and then that lasted about a year. So so that's where that was coming from.
That can be a bad idea, and I agree with that.
So maybe patience as a divorce starts, and then patience and give yourself healing time after the divorce is over instead of running into something.
I think so. I think patience is the big thing, and that's something that Juliet Lako, my divorce attorney expert, recommended. And she also said that when you're making this financial plan for what it's going to be like for you beyond the divorce, you build in a savings routine so that all the money or the income you have is not all just going to paying the bills. You need to have a savings mechanism for the long term. And that can be being sure that you sign into your employer's 401k and at least get the matching for it. So long term, you're going to have some retirement money, or starting your own IRA so that you can save for the long term in the least expensive way. There's a lot to think about with a divorce, especially early on. And the bottom line is, don't rush it.
Okay, Julia has spoken. That's it. I think that's good. Yeah, and it's, not a cheerful topic, as we said, but certainly with all the numbers of people who do get divorced and your emotions are running high, and you just need to calm down, take a deep breath, contact an attorney, find out what you need to do, and go from there.
Right.
So that's it. This has been Smart Money. I'm Pat Boyle along with Julia Anderson. We've been talking divorce, and we hope you learned something today. Thanks.
For more information, go to my website at 60andsingle.com.